Good morning, everyone. This is Cassie Stumo. I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar. We'll start off today with an introduction of EAC from Lauren, and then Levi and Travis from Formlabs will be presenting to us on PreForm optimization and give you guys some tips and tricks on Formlabs software. Everyone will get a recording of this session pending any technical difficulties. There is a short survey that appears once the webinar is over, so just hang tight once we're done and drop your questions in the queue along the way, and we'll answer them after the presentation. I'll hand things off to Levi, and he'll give us an agenda of today's webinar.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Cassie. And just a quick kind of introduction on our side. Obviously, in terms of who's going to be speaking today, we have Lauren over at EAC as the additive manager. Myself as the channel sales manager for North America, and then we also have Trevor, who's part of our customer success management team that really is going to do a deep dive on PreForm and some of the things he finds very successful on, just augmenting parts within PreForm. So today is really going to be focused on kind of PreForm and what are the best tips and tricks associated to orienting your parts. So with that said, I want to do just a quick introduction of what we'll kind of dive into today. And what we'll be looking at within PreForm is obviously, how to align or manipulate your models for the best orientation. We'll really dive into the advanced settings for support adjustment, the design specifications you want to kind of adhere to. We'll also do a quick introduction on our newest material, our Tough 1500, which so far has had some really good reviews. And then obviously we'll do a dive into our customer success management team and kind of what they bring to the table for our customers. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Lauren.
Awesome, thanks Levi. And if you could go to our next slide, I'll go through our mission statement here at EAC. Perfect. So our mission statement here at EAC is to transform the way that companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. And we do that by offering solutions for product development. So we're partnered with PTC to offer their Creo CAD software and their Windchill PLM software. And we also provide training and implementation services for those as well. And we also offer our own engineering and design services if you need help with the backlog. We're also an ANSYS provider for advanced simulation software needs. And we provide IoT, Internet of Things solutions to help get your products smartly connected. And then obviously the reason why we're here today is that we're a commercial partner of Formlabs to be able to offer an affordable 3D printing option to make it easier for companies like you to bring 3D printing in-house. So let's turn it back over to Levi.
Perfect. And, just kind of going off that point, as the channel manager over here for the North American commercial division, we don't take partners on lightly, right? We're looking for people that can really kind of extend our customer experience through kind of their expertise, and EAC is very high on that list with regards to what they bring to the table, how they support our products, and how they kind of deliver that experience. So obviously it's always a pleasure working with Lauren and the EAC team. They bring a lot to the table for us. So kind of going off that point, the first thing I kind of want to just touch on is, we're going to be touching on PreForm orientation, how to get the most successful parts made with our printer. But going off that point, what we offer here at Formlabs is a complete ecosystem, from the material you choose, and we have over 24 different materials to choose from, to the way you orient your parts within our PreForm, which is what we'll dive into, which is that second component, preparing the design, to the printers themselves. And what you see in front of you there is our newest addition to the Formlabs lineup, the Form 3 printer. And it's been a really exciting journey so far. We just announced the release in April. And it's been a little bit of a rocket ship journey, right? It's been a really, really exciting year getting this product out in the market in terms of what it brings to the table. And then of course the last component is the post-processing with regards to those parts. So we do offer a complete ecosystem. The thing that we're really going to dive into today specifically is the PreForm software. So the second aspect of that ecosystem. So just a quick kind of update or kind of intro into PreForm. PreForm is built to deliver a lot of very useful tools in terms of automation, and really allows you to focus on building successful parts without having to be, have 15 years of additive experience. Most people are preparing in PreForm, and it can usually take less than 5 minutes based on the parts that you're building and the tools associated with PreForm. So if you haven't had a chance to work with PreForm in the past, I definitely recommend maybe downloading it and running it. It's a free software program that we offer with our printers. So in terms of the tools that are associated with PreForm, PreForm uses a lot of automatic algorithms based on the material that you choose and the parts and the geometry that you're building. We have automated layout tools, automated orientation tools, and of course, automated support structure tools to make sure that you can get that design loaded into the printer and printed successfully, not only easily, but rather quickly. And so kind of going off that point, I want to drop in one of our experts over here at Formlabs, Trevor, who's actually part of our customer success team. So we're just going.
Giving you a presenter, we can see your screen.
Great. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Trevor from Formlabs. I'm a customer success manager, as Levi mentioned earlier. So he kind of walked you through a couple of the more automated features of PreForm, which are great. And then I'm going to kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive too. So to kind of get started here. Perfect. So we have, as Levi mentioned, a lot of different kind of options in terms of preparing your part for printing. So this GIF here is showing some of the orientation tools you can use for kind of quick and simple shots at orientation. You know, Formlabs envisions this part of the whole print ecosystem as happening really quickly and efficiently. So we've built out a lot of tools to help you do so. So here we're able to kind of orient based on each face of your part, and you can kind of see which one works best for you. Here you can easily see how you can kind of multiply out your parts, get set up so you can kind of have a bunch of different prototypes to work with and kind of hand around to different departments. So we have many different tools revolving around the layout of your parts as well. So what I'm like really most interested in is making sure people have a good idea of kind of how to dive in manually when you have a part that maybe is a little more complicated, or you have specific faces that you want to make sure don't get covered with supports or something like that. So this you can kind of think of as like a more advanced version of PreForm when sort of the one-click print approach isn't exactly what you're looking for. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just pull up PreForm here and give you a quick live demo of some of the things that I like to keep in mind in terms of orientation and support. So hold on one second here. Oops. Share my screen.
I think you are sharing.
Oh yeah. Perfect. All right. Can everyone see PreForm here?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Cool. Okay. So I brought a couple models in that we can look at. One, as you can see, is kind of a large heart model here. And then another one is a flat plate. So what I'm going to do is first just hide this heart model here using the model list. Very helpful for managing multiple files. And then I'm going to kind of take a look at this plate. So when you're working on the Form 3, you don't have to consider quite as many variables as you do when you're working on the Form 2, because the Form 3 has much less peel force. But I still like to make sure that I've got a couple of things under wrap here in terms of getting my files oriented and supported. So while you can use some of the automated features, which are great inspiration and often work quite well, I like to kind of come in and do it manually. So a lot of people will, when they're printing initially, kind of print their files flat on supports. But by doing that, you really have like kind of a large, thin surface that only is held up by small support touch points. So the real secret to printing successfully with this SLA technology is to always try and print surfaces off of themselves, which essentially means you need to print them at an angle. So you'll see I use kind of this center tool here to rotate the part around. And now what you can see, if we use this slicer tool here, is that the part is going to build much more off of itself than if I had it flat. So you can see it's a nice gentle slope up instead of kind of large kind of chunks out, which can create areas that are unstable. So it's really important to always generate your parts kind of at an angle here. And then I can come in and just auto-generate the supports. So for me, auto-generating supports is great. Usually I do a little bit more kind of manual work on the orientation side, but the algorithms for supports are wonderful. So I always lean on algorithms when I can. And the only thing that I like to do in here is to really play with this touch point size. So a big pain in 3D printing is the post-processing time, right? And this is one of the big advantages of the Form 3 is that we can use these smaller support touch points due to the low peel forces. So PreForm starts with very conservative settings, which kind of live more in the like 0.7 millimeter range or so, but I like to bring it kind of down a fair bit more to something more like 0.45. So, and even here, I think for this one, since we're rocking something pretty simple, now I might go something like 0.35. So I'm just gonna go ahead, generate those. And what these small touch points are gonna allow me to do is basically, I'm gonna be able to pop this part off the build platform, take 2 fingers and just pry it right off these supports, maybe a second of sanding just to get rid of any other nubs, and you're pretty much done, which is a pretty different reality than we had before with the Form 2. Now, what we're gonna do in a second here is look at how you can make some kind of like fine support edits if you have a model that's a little more complicated than this fabulous plate here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide that, bring up the heart here. See, it's a nifty Formlabs branded heart. What I did for this kind of ahead of our presentation here is really just auto-generate supports with the internal supports turned off down here, because this model has been designed to print without internal supports. So normally, since it's a hollow model, those supports would be nearly impossible to remove. But here, it was cleverly designed so that if it's printed in a vertical orientation like this, then you'll be able to print it without those supports. And since I'm printing in clear, you'll be able to kind of see through it. Really nice to see all the internal channels. That's a great moment to consider your orientation again, because if you had a part that had kind of a hollow interior, you'd want to try and orient it in a way where you could avoid internal supports when possible. But you'll notice in here that there's still a little bit of red. PreForm's kind of throwing an error at me here. So what I might want to do is just manually add in a couple of points. So what I'm going to do is hit this edit all button. And what that's going to do is turn all these supports into kind of small circles that you can go in and edit. So first for me, I'm going to take a look at this top vent here. Forgive me, anatomy, not my strong suit. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop a touch point in there. Oh, it looks like I better turn that on. Good catch, PreForm. So I can go ahead. Whoa, I think it was taking me to some tutorial, which I'm going to skip because I've done this before. And I'm just going to add a couple in there. I think 2 will be fine. And then I'm just going to go ahead and hit apply. Great. So in here, these are going to be easy to remove because they're close to the edge of the model. While there's still a little bit of red in here, I know that this is going to print fine. You know, a small blushing is totally okay here. When you see kind of hard red surfaces that are sort of have lines and they're coming up as minima, then you know you've got a problem. So since I've got a green thumbs up here, I'm pretty sure I'm good to go. So in that case, all I need to do is just come up and hit print. And one quick thing before we go is that you'll notice that there's a whole lot of other options in here, which are great to experiment with, but generally the ones we talked about today are really going to be the ones to focus on. While you can kind of turn up and down the density, which basically is sort of like taking more or fewer support touch points, I find it much more helpful to kind of focus on touch point size and leave the density alone. And the settings down here are also good for kind of very unique circumstances, but again, I feel like they're much less important than kind of focusing on some of these basics here. So with that, I'm going to pop back out to our presentation here. All right. Get back into presenting mode. Cool. Cool. So now we've got a great example of the sort of supports that I just generated. I'm pretty sure the touch point sizes on this were about actually 0.35. So that was a particularly nice example. And here you can see somebody doing it with an even larger part. This is like a pretty radical shift from the way that you could post-process parts on the Form 2. I think probably many of you have used them before, and it's not nearly this simple. It involves all sorts of like pliers and whatnot. So this is a really big step, and using small touch points is kind of the key to getting parts to print out this way.
And just an added point to that, right? You know, the thing I always see on my side is you always have the tools. If you don't have the time to manipulate, you can always hit the one-click print button, which will orient, support, and generate those supports on the fly based on the automatic algorithms. You have the ability to orient and just auto support the part. But when you really dive into the weeds of touch point size, you start eliminating a lot of the back-end post-processing, right? The sanding, the additional steps you have to take to make sure that part is clean and the tolerances aren't being affected. And that's really what we were kind of discussing today with regards to touch point size, right? You know, getting down to 0.35 on your parts really eliminates a lot of the back-end work that you might have to do if you were to just auto-generate. And that's why it's so important to kind of really dive into that and really manipulate those parts. You know, we're built to be successful. We want parts to be successful first and foremost, and then the second step obviously is really diving into the weeds and making sure there's less post-processing needed with those parts. So I just want to add that point, Trevor.
Absolutely, yeah, I think that is a big one, and you'll see kind of some immediate results once you start playing with that. So to kind of shift gears a little bit here, we wanted to touch on a new material that I'm really excited about. I work directly with a lot of customers who use our engineering materials, and there was a real gap between our tough and durable resins, and this is kind of what we're filling with Tough 1500 here. So essentially this material is in between both of those, and it's great for parts that say still need kind of a high impact strength, but you can't have them be quite as soft and pliable as durable. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of this in a moment, but it's really been kind of a game changer for people who are doing kind of parts that need to have snap fits or a little bit of motion. It's really like quite a bit different than say our our durable resin, which used to be sort of the only option in this space. The sort of material that we were kind of honing in on for Tough 1500 is polypropylene, which we used to kind of consider our durable as sort of our closest option. But now that we've got this choice, this is really the preferred resin for that. And durable becomes sort of simulates more of like a polyethylene resin, and then Tough, for reference, is more like an ABS plastic. Levi, I don't know if you have anything you want to add on this.
I think that's definitely something to touch on. And you know, I think the thing I always like to kind of recap here is, you know, there's usually 3 groups of R&D over at Formlabs, right? And that's the exciting part. We're very much R&D focused company. That's really where our spend is. And there's 3 groups that really that kind of focus on the R&D. There's the MEs building the new printers. There's the PreForm team that's building the software and the automatic algorithms that we just kind of walked through. And kind of the real rock stars over here at Formlabs is our material scientist team. And you know, if the Form 2 was a terrific platform for material development, we developed, I think, 24 different resins over about a 4-year span. We're looking to aggressively double that with the Form 3 platform and what that technology brings to the table, and kind of what they're cooking up in that kitchen over in the material scientist division is really exciting. That's kind of what you see with Tough 1500, is that evolution. And so what we have, what we're really going to walk through today is just some of those examples. We actually are going to dive into that. But what we have here on the right, you know, we're going to show you the sample here on the left in terms of what that brings to the table. And what you have on the right is kind of the distinction with our durable, our tough, and our Tough 1500. So on the left, in this spring-like structure, you have our tough resin. On the far right, you have our durable resin. And as you can see in the middle there, that's our Tough 1500. It's the one right between those two. And so far, it's been really exciting. I know, Trevor, you have some live examples you want to show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and switch us over here. Great. Hello. So Levi mentioned this a bit earlier, but this is kind of our standard sample, so you can absolutely request it, and I definitely encourage you to. It comes on supports, and so it's kind of a neat experience of both light touch supports and this material. But you can see it's got great spring back, really repeatable, a very robust material. I have the same part printed in Tough. It like barely moves. And so this one also has a little bit of lubricity too, which is big, and that's one reason that people really liked our durable resin. But this really gives you a lot less creep and is really all in all like a much better choice for this sort of part. Here you can see some glasses that we have printed out here. They're a little small for me, but they look pretty nice for a much smaller person. And you can see there's great return on this, right? So you kind of pop it in. Pretty neat stuff. Definitely not what would happen with durable, right? You'd see like a much slower kind of return, and eventually it would probably end up kind of warping out a little bit. So really nice material for that. This is probably one of my favorite examples of it. So you can see it's like a little bottle cap here with a nice little living hinge there, so it kind of clicks in. This is a great piece to demonstrate the difference between the three resins, because if you printed this in Tough, it would most likely just break during the first or second click in here, right? Because it's much more stiff. And if you printed this in durable, it would probably end up kind of warping out, and you wouldn't get this really nice snap in here. So this is a really interesting part, I think. And then this is just kind of one last interesting example here. Make sure I get it in my screen there. There we go. But you can see that it's got kind of a nice pliability here, but still like quite stiff. And these function a lot like tongs. I use them all the time in the kitchen, and if these weren't made out of resin, I'd probably use these too. So this is a great example of this material. And if you've worked with either of the two kind of other materials in this family, being Tough and durable, really encourage you to check this one out.
Perfect. And so kind of the last thing we want to kind of touch on today is just what the customer success management team brings to the table. So this is a team that really helps deliver, for lack of a better term, confidence with our machines and the work that you guys have to do in terms of prototyping, production, and what they really kind of bring to the table is a very strong understanding of what this machine can do, and most important, the nuance of printing parts, right? So our Formlabs customer success management team works with a lot of the larger clients with EAC and really kind of delivering the nuance of our machines. If you have a job that's, you're going to be printing nonstop for a month, it's a great time to kind of reach out to Lauren and talk about maybe getting in front of our EAC, the customer success management team. If you have questions around specific materials or specific ways to print parts, they're there as an ally to help make sure that print cycle that you're going through, whether it's a couple of days or a couple of months, is really successful and you get the outcome you're looking for. And again, this is a free service based on our customers and kind of their experience with our printers. But again, really good at kind of what they bring to the table and really understanding the nuance. We just touched on maybe two of those aspects today with regards to nuance, and that is support touch points and what that brings to the table, and obviously density and really manually orienting your parts. But there's so much more that kind of comes to the table, and that's really what they're built to do. Trevor, I didn't know if you had any additional kind of context there.
I think that's a pretty good overview of it. Really, this team was kind of set up to take some of the most exciting work that customers were doing and really just help them achieve their goals and kind of supercharge the process, make sure there weren't any kind of roadblocks or hurdles in their way. And I think so far we've we've had great feedback on it and are kind of excited to work with any of you that are interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have any questions or maybe you have some big projects on the docket this year, definitely reach out to Lauren, who can get in touch with us to set up that initial call.